This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into this week's edition of Mizzou. That's your podcast for Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network. I am one of your wonderful hosts, Tucker Franklin, joined as always by Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. It's been a busy week in Mizzou Athletics, from the transfer portal to basketball to a little bit of everything that we got going on here. Gabe, how have you been doing? How have you been holding it down? I think it's been like over a week since we talked, since we did the bowl selection show. So it's been a minute since we've sat down together to record a pod.
Yeah, it's almost like everyday coaching search right now. Like, I still do things like try to go to the gym or walk my dog, but the whole time I'm like, well, surely 27 things have happened. Every kid is in the portal. The world is burning as I'm walking my dog around the neighborhood. So it's fun though. I like, honestly, I told a couple coaches this week, I get why you hate it, but this is great. I think it's absolutely awesome.
It has been great for entertainment. The transfer portal just all around the country is absolutely insane. Like, the quarterback names going into it are incredible. Still waiting on a few dominoes still to fall around the transfer portal before I think we start to get a whole lot. But Maggie, how have you been?
Good. I feel like every day, kind of like Gabe saying, there's like a new award list coming out too, and I can't figure out if it's one that I've seen yet. It'll be like an All-American list, and I'm like, wait, but is it an All-American list that I've seen, or is it an All-American list that I haven't seen and somebody else has added to it? So I'm like, wait, no, I haven't seen that one because Tyron Hopper's on it, or something different. Oh, Chris Abrams-Jr.'s on that one. So but it's really cool because, Cody Schrader's on like every single one, or Luther Burton's on every single one. So yeah, it's really just cool to see so many Mizzou players on these lists that you're not used to seeing. So yeah, it's really cool.
I am surprised by the amount of All-American by however many outlets have All-American teams that you can be put on. Cody Schrader, I think, was...
I haven't seen Big Game Boomer's All-American team yet, and that's really the one that I think Twitter's waiting for, right?
Hey, he's going to the Cotton Bowl, so maybe you'll get to meet him. Get a photo up.
with the Big Game Boomer himself. Can't wait. AP released their is that the one that we all reserve as like the top All-American, or is that the one Gaber's?
It's the one I look at the most. Okay. There are 5 that figure into to be a consensus All-American, which means you get your picture in the hallway and you get plaques and all that. You have to make 3 of 5 teams. I don't know exactly which 5 they are. The AP is one of them, certainly. Yeah. Football Writers might be. I'm not sure. But like you said, there's so many. I mean, CBS Sports has it, and USA Today has it, and now 247 has it. I mean, everybody puts them out. But yeah, there are 4 or 5 that are a little bigger than the rest. And, it's the same for Missouri players. It's just a matter of first team, second team, and in a couple places, third team. I saw Javon Foster is the first Missouri offensive lineman to be a Football Writers Association All-American since 1962, which is wild.
Especially when you consider some of those offensive linemen that are playing in the NFL currently for for some teams.
I feel like that's been one of our better positions that we've had.
But they've had a lot of guys, like, they haven't had any blue chip offensive linemen, really, right? I mean, they've all been guys like Javon Foster who started their careers with very little hype. I mean, Connor McGovern, Mitch Morse, these were outside of Evan Bain. They were just kind of guys. And even Foster, if you look at it, he got the hype because this is year 6, right? I mean, he got the hype because he played well in year 4 and year 5. So everybody knew him coming into this year, whereas without the ridiculousness that is eligibility right now, he's not even in college football. So that preseason hype is, unless you just have a Cody Schrader story and you go out and do something that's undeniable, like lead the SEC in rushing, you've got to have that hype in the preseason. I mean, Marvin Harrison was invited to the Heisman ceremony as a finalist, and like, look, Marvin had a good season, but he didn't have a 4th place in the Heisman season.
No,
I wrote that down to even talk about, because I thought Malik Neighbors may have had better numbers than Marvin Harrison, and I wasn't really sure why he was there instead of him, but I don't know. Maybe that's for a different conversation.
I know Neighbors probably should have won the Biletnikoff, truthfully, when you just look at purely on numbers and stuff like that. I heard a really good argument for Roma Dunze to win the Biletnikoff, too, just when Michael Penix wasn't working, like Roma Dunze was in some of those circumstances. But, yeah, I think I saw Cody Schrader get a first-team AP All-American. Like, that's really cool. Cody Schrader finishing 8th in the Heisman voting is also really cool. The highest finish for a Mizzou player since, I believe, 2007. That's Chase Daniel when he was a finalist, correct? Just got off the phone with Chase Daniel, actually. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of offensive linemen, though, you mentioned Javon Foster, an offensive lineman just hit the portal. As we were starting to record this podcast, just came down that former Lee Summit North Mustang, Cayden Green, has entered the transfer portal. 6'5", 325 pounds. He was a true freshman last year. Enters with 3 years of eligibility remaining, and he was freshman All-American honors this year. Pretty big news, Gabe, before we decided to step on and record this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it delayed the start a few minutes. He was, Cayden was a top 100 kid out of high school. Played ball with Armand Mimbo and with Williams Winery. Armand may or may not have already tweeted an emoji in reaction to Cayden entering the portal. But took an official visit to Missouri, and like all throughout his recruiting process, Oklahoma was the favorite. Like this is where this kid grew up. He wants to play here. They're going to be really tough to beat. And I talked to Cayden the day after his visit, and I mean, he gutsed about the visit to Missouri. It was the bestest I took. They did everything they could. I love it. They really gave me a lot to think about. Ended up signing with OU. But look, this is the lesson in college recruiting now. It's in both sports. You don't ever burn a bridge, because now a year later, you never know, right? They might be back in the portal. And then even if he goes somewhere else, well, a lot of these kids come in with a lot of credits, and he might graduate in 2 years, and he might be in the portal again. Yeah. And he might be in the portal with 2 years to play, and he might be able to transfer twice. So, you're legitimately talking about kids that can play 3 or 4 places over the course of 5 years and get paid 3 or 4 times. And it just changes the way you have to handle these things when you lose them. I know for a fact there was a basketball player in the last couple of years that I think Missouri could have gotten. But by the time he was ready to decide, they had kind of filled spots. And one of the things they really made sure to do was to communicate to the kid, look, we really like you. If something happens down the road, we want to hear from you. The numbers just didn't work out here, but you have to keep those relationships. Because just because you don't get a kid doesn't mean you're not getting a kid.
And everything in college football is kind of smoke and mirrors, right? So everybody during the season is talking about how happy they are. We saw it with Mekhi Wingo, right? Immediately after the season, he's talking about can't wait for next year. He's tweeting it. It's his pinned tweet. Can't wait for next year. 3 days later, he's in the portal. A week later, he's at LSU. Okay, so we see Cayden Green tweeting about how happy he is at OU, and he's apparently he's showing a freshman around campus, and then you just don't really know what's going on behind the scene with these players, though.
Because here's the other thing. Cayden may 100% have been very happy. He may be very happy today, and I'm not saying this is going on with Cayden, but this goes on. There's some communication, right? And technically it's not illegal, because a lot of these kids have agents, or they have friends that play at other places, that know coaches, that know other people. So it might be communicated to a kid who is very happy. Hey, you probably, players like you probably could get $500,000 if they were playing, say, here. And then that works a number of ways. Some kids just do it and they're gone and cool. Some kids get that and then go back to the school they're at and say, well, I'm just here and I can get $500,000 there. What can you do? Oh, you can give me $600,000? Okay, cool. Let me take the $600,000 back to the people that said $500,000. People think it's absolutely happening everywhere. These kids are using NIL offers, legal and less legal, as leverage. I mean, the number one thing that every single coach has been doing the last 2 weeks is going to every one of his current players that he wants back. Okay, what's it take? Like, here's what you made last year. Just, again, I'm throwing out names people are familiar with. Brady Cook, you got X number of dollars last year. You had a hell of a year. You're our starting quarterback next year. How much more does it cost? And that's, and some of those kids, that's enough. And some of those kids then use that to I mean, it's not any different than anybody entertaining job offers. Some people just say, hey, get close. I like you. I like this company. I don't want to make new friends or enemies or whatever. I make it work. Just get close and we're good. And then some people are going to collect 7 offers and go around and shop them 14 times and end up taking the best one. And you can either complain about it and whine about tampering and NIL, or you can do like Eli Drinkwitz said 3 years ago, this is it. You can either play or not play, but it's not going away. This is the game.
Well, and look at the way that these local kids are being treated. Look at the way that Luther Burden is being treated as a home state kid. Look at the way Brady Cook is treated. Look at the way that Cody Schrader is treated, being from the state of Missouri. Now, I'm not saying that the money isn't great. Right. Well, when you perform, of course. But
right. There's a prerequisite here.
Oh, of course. But who wouldn't want to be treated that way whenever you perform that way? Like, that is, the money comes when you perform and you're from your home state. Like, that is every kid's dream.
Look, if you have enough stars, the money comes before you perform.
Yeah, about to say. And it only keeps coming. It only keeps coming. Brady Cook is only making more money the better he plays.
Does also help when your home state passes legislation that you can make money at high school. That also really does help.
It only helps.
So also, like, shout out to like Drinkwitz for, as you mentioned, Gabe, not being like complaining about. You see a lot of coaches out here complaining about like NIL, like we need more NIL money to complain. And I think I saw a message board genius post. I think it was fake. Obviously, just like someone being sarcastic about like, I told my daughter and my son I'm giving them their Christmas money.
South Carolina.
Like it's probably fake, but you're never 100% sure, which is why this is great.
Yes, that's why we love college football. I'm sure it's fake. I want to believe, honestly, for my own sanity, that it's fake. But you got things like that. You got Mark Stoops, after a loss, slouched down in his chair during his coach's show, asking like, well, we can't compete because we don't have enough NIL money. Or you could be like Eli Drinkwitz and go out there and recruit like he's doing. Listen, we've known that about Eli Drinkwitz, that he's a very good recruiter, a tenacious recruiter. We've known that about him from his whole tenure at Missouri, and he's proving again why he's such a good recruiter. Now, I don't think that just because Cayden Green has entered the portal, we should jump to the conclusion that it's Missouri, right? I think there's a good indication.
Jump to the conclusion they're very much going to be involved and do everything they can. But no, absolutely. Look, I mean, this is, from what I understand, this is not done. Right. You know, this is not he's not, well, of course it's not done. He's not even actually in the portal. All he said is, I'm going in. So, of course, it's not done.
That's very interesting, too, a conversation that I've heard had on a couple of different podcasts about players have to actually go to compliance, fill out the paperwork to enter the portal. Sometimes you see these players announce on social media, I'm going to the portal, and then no paperwork ever gets done in an effort to kind of strong-arm the university, as you were mentioning, into more NIL money. And it's a negotiation tactic. The players, going back to your point, Gabe, have more leverage than the universities, than the coaches. They make more money now than the coaches, than the universities now, it seems like.
And look, the coach kind of has to be a GM or a salary cap guy at this point, because you can't just give everybody $1 million, right? You've got to know, okay, here's what I've got to work with. And if my quarterback costs $1 million and my offensive line costs $2 million, here's what I've got for the rest of the roster. And it is the money is not unlimited. But kind of going back to what you were saying a couple minutes ago, this is what I find very interesting about NIL. Everybody insisted when this started, and by everybody I mean a lot of fans, especially fans of places like Missouri. Well, we have no chance. All this is going to do is help Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State and USC. those aren't the schools spending the big money, guys. They don't have to. Kirby Smart can sell, we won 2 straight national titles and we're a play away from a third. Yes, we're going to pay you, but no, we don't have to pay you stupid money.
Yeah.
The schools that are paying the biggest money, where this is having the biggest impact, are the schools trying to catch them. The Missouris, the Ole Misses, the Nebraskas now. I mean, look, we're not there. We can't sell what they're selling. But with you, if we pay you a little more than they'll pay you, we can get to where they're at. And that's, NIL really, I feel, is, I mean, you're going to a 12-team playoff. Look at the teams that would be in it. Yes, the powerhouses would be in it. But Missouri would be in it. And Ole Miss would be in it. And, there are other teams that Louisville would have had a shot at, so it really is. And Dan Wetzel from Yahoo was the first guy I heard say this at the very beginning. He said, I see this as leveling the playing field because, look, the Blue Bloods can't get you can't buy everyone. Mm-hmm. So maybe Boise State can't spend $20 million to get the whole roster, but maybe they can spend $3 on those 2 or 3 kids who really elevate the program, and they can get kids that they wouldn't have gotten 3 years ago. And I think that's happening. I mean, look no further than on one side of the ball, you've got Luther Burden. On the other side of the ball, you've got Williams Whitner. Drink's a good recruiter. There are a lot of great things about Columbia, Missouri, and the University of Missouri. And if you are a diehard Missouri fan, just listening to this, wanting to believe that those 2 kids just love black and gold as much as you do, that is awesome. You should be happy NIL exists too.
To your point about schools like Georgia not needing, NIL as much as schools like Missouri and Kentucky and things like that. Like, look at players like ETN. Okay, so you have high school recruits coming in to Georgia, and then you have players like ETN that are transferring, right? And ETN probably values himself, I would say, pretty high. And then Georgia can get 5-star running backs. So whenever they have players that are trying to both go to this school, and ETN is saying, okay, I want this much money. And so if he wants to go there, and then a 5-star incoming freshman is going to say, well, no, because I'm not going to come to your school if you're taking ETN. And so what's Georgia going to do? Is Georgia going to say, well, we want this 5-star freshman, or do we want ETN? And they have to make a decision, right? Yeah. So you have to decide if you're going to value themselves. Well, Georgia's probably going to be like, well, then no, we're not going to take ETN because we're going to put our eggs in this basket instead. So, right, they get to choose. That's the value of having. They can take the lower amount in that 5-star recruit. That is the perk of being a school like Georgia.
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, it is a nice thing, but I don't know. It is the money thing is like. The nice thing about Mizzou, too, people don't think about this, is like businesses in like the state of Missouri, we have so many more, and we'll go in our large cities. Like, people don't think about that. We have St. Louis and Kansas City. What cities does Mississippi have? What cities do Kentucky have? I mean, they have like Louisville, but like we have those large cities that like Desiree can go to and try to like pull those businesses out. I know we get like donations, or like not donations, but we get NIL from like Edward Jones. We get NIL from those cities, but a lot of places don't get that. I think people need to like remember that too. That is like a perk of having those cities in Missouri.
I think so. I mean, it's huge. NIL obviously is shaping the future of both sports in terms of football and basketball in Columbia. It's exciting. It's very exciting. Mizzou has landed 2 other transfers that we're going to get to here in a second too, before we even get to the basketball side of things, because there's a lot going on in college football. Gabe, as you mentioned, and I believe it was your Monday morning 10 things, that like football is legitimately 24/7. Whether it's NFL, college football, it's 24/7, and you can always rock your Missouri Tigers 24/7 with home field apparel. You like that plug right there? You like that transition? That was pretty professional.
Professional segue.
That felt really good. I'm rocking the Mizzou Raw shirt. Maggie, you got the Fight for Mizzou football one right there. They've got a lot of good sports-specific ones. They've got a lot of good just generic Mizzou shirts over there at homefieldapparel.com. They got all kinds of sales going on. They're in their 12 days of Christmas right now, so every day they're getting a new sale going on. And I think Dad Hats today, they've got a sale on. So go check them out. They've got Mizzou. They got 150 plus other schools if you're interested in anything else that they got going on. Vintage apparel. It all looks really clean. It's all very soft. I love wearing my Home Field Apparel hoodie. It's one of the most comfortable hoodies I own. I wear it frequently. You can ask literally anybody because I'm always wearing that hoodie. I really do appreciate folks over at homefieldapparel.com for hooking us up with some great stuff and hooking us up with a promo code where you can get 15% off your first order with the code KCSN23. That's 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com with code KCSN23. We'll be back to talk more transfer portal and some Mizzou hoops coming up next.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, let's keep it with the transfer portal here. Because Mizzou did sign a running back out of the transfer portal from Georgia State, Marcus Carroll. 1,350 rushing yards last year, 13 touchdowns, 23 catches for 234 yards. Thoughts on Marcus Carroll, Gabe, as he is coming to Mizzou? I think I read that he'll be in classes in January, right? He's doing the enrollment, so he'll be there for spring ball.
Yeah, which is why most of these kids get in the portal as quick as they do, so they can get to the new campus. Look, 1,350 yards, 13 touchdowns. Sun Belt, a good league. Most people, had him as one of the better running backs in the portal. Rankings are whatever they are, but his name was up there with a lot of the others. Missouri desperately needed a transfer running back. Probably will still take another one, maybe two, depending on how numbers work out. So, corner and running back were probably, I'd say corner, running back, and left tackle are the three places where they knew we need somebody. So, you're going out and identifying guys very early. You're not necessarily waiting because there's going to be another wave of portal entrance after bowl games and another one after spring ball, but you're not waiting around on those positions. You need guys that can come in and start at those three positions. So Toriano Pride, the expectation is he starts at corner. Marcus Carroll is certainly going to be in the running back or in the running for, running back 1, 2, 3, whatever. He's going to get carries. And then, who knows? We'll find out if left tackle just got answered earlier today.
Maggie, thoughts on Carroll?
Yeah, I'm excited. I've watched a little bit of his tape, not a lot of Georgia State, obviously, this year. I know that they were a little bit better at the beginning of the season and fell off a little bit towards the end of the season. But yeah, I'm excited. I think that, Coach Coop has done a great job at developing running backs. I'm not worried at all about what he can do in the running back position. He's done great jobs, obviously, with Tyler Beatty. So I think Tyler Beatty and with Cody Schrader. So I trust everything that Coach Coop does in the running back room. No worries here.
I think some of people's that I saw on social media, their first response was this was it for running back. I don't think that that should be the response, Gabe, as you did mention. Missouri's losing two running backs. Two running backs that got significant snaps.
Do you know how many carries Mizzou has coming back next season as of right now?
I think I saw this somewhere. How many do they have?
8.
Well,
7 of those are Tavoris Jones, who got none this year. And look, I'm not saying Tavoris is leaving, but it's certainly something that has to be on the radar. He fell behind a true freshman last year. They're going to bring in, between high school and portal, they're going to bring in 4 running. So Jamarian Burnett, a high school kid, visited last weekend. They got Carroll. They're looking for another transfer. I'm working on trying to dig up a couple names. Obviously, they looked at Rocket Sanders. I don't think that's something that's being heavily pursued at this point. They're looking at Trevor Etienne. If I had to guess, I would say that's not happening. But there are plenty of other names out there. And running backs, you can't just take anybody, right? And it's going to work. But by the same token, a lot of it does depend on your line. Cody Schrader had an amazing year. And there are probably some other guys who could have had that year. Like, very rarely do you get, I mean, I've probably watched like 2 or 3 running backs in my entire lifetime. It goes back to the Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith debate, right? We'll put Barry behind Dallas's line. How much does he run for? 8,000 a year?
Right.
So it's not an insult to Cody Schrader, but it is a place where you don't necessarily have to chase the shiniest object that's going to cost the most, because sometimes if you get 2 or 3 somewhat lesser guys, they can absolutely match that.
Do you think that there would be any shot at all in a flip from Ainias Williams, or do you think that that's just...
I haven't gotten any indication that that's going to. He committed to Notre Dame real early. I've not really heard his name, but look, literally anything is possible. The number 1 quarterback recruit in the country moved to Georgia and now might go to Nebraska. So I don't know. Anything is possible.
Is that absolutely wild? Because I feel like we should talk about that a little. I feel like we should talk about that a little bit, because obviously, for those that don't know, the quarterback...
Dylan Rail.
Yeah, but the quarterback that was committed to Mizzou, Daniel Cayden, after Dylan Raiola decided he wasn't going to go to Nebraska and was going to go to Georgia, our quarterback decommitted from Mizzou and was like, oh, sorry, Mizzou, I'm going to commit to Nebraska. And now this Dylan Raiola is like, I'm going to throw my hat back in the ring because my uncle is coaching at Nebraska.
Which his uncle was always coaching at Nebraska. Let's be real clear here.
But didn't they give him a raise? There's like a raise involved. There is a little bit of something involved here.
Here's what's involved, and I love that we can just say this out loud. I think it's pretty clear because Kyle McCord is visiting Nebraska this weekend. Fleming, Ohio State wide receiver. So I think it's real clear what happened. No, we ain't doing this 5-7 thing again. Matt Rule, take all our money. Buy whoever you got to buy, because we're not doing this again. And so that gets you back in with a kid that that maybe you wouldn't have been in with. And the whole Cayden thing, like, it's just laying bare for everybody. This is why the portal has to exist and the free transfer has to exist. This kid's getting screwed. Now, other side of it, did he decommit from Missouri? Absolutely. Both sides do this, but I tend to try to hold the multi-million-dollar adults more accountable than I do the 17-year-old kids. And so Daniel Cayden is sitting here 9 days before signing day, 8 days before signing day. Now, in all likelihood, knowing that he never has any chance to be the starting quarterback at the University of Nebraska. But where can he go? He can't go Missouri. Missouri filled his spot. How many power schools at this point need a quarterback? Not very many. So his best bet at this point truly is just sign with Nebraska, sit there for a year. The day the portal opens next year, get in it and see if some places that wanted him last year still want him, or if something didn't work out with another guy. And so why should he have to sit out for a year because at the last minute, the coaches did something that they're fully within their rights to do, but they put him in a really bad spot.
And they'd be crazy not to do. Like, Nebraska would be crazy not to take Dylan Raiola. Like, they'd be crazy. Yeah. But, yeah, crazy world.
It is. It is insane.
It's a lot of fun, though. It really makes the time between things. I mean, we are 30 minutes into recording this, and none of us have even considered talking about Mizzou campus basketball. That's what this is.
Yeah. We haven't even talked about Toriano Pride all that much, because, that was...
free agency for everybody in America. And also, it's free agency, but it's like if you said, yeah, this guy signed it here, and then maybe he signed it here, but he's still got 3 weeks to go get more offers. The
fact that multiple schools are talking about Mizzou tampering is like the funniest. Like, that is the world that we're living in right now. And that is crazy to me. Like, it's crazy.
Well, and let's just say this. If you are not tampering.
Oh. I don't know what happened. You hit your desk, Gabe. You hit your desk, and
Yeah, we lost.
I went on mute.
Oh.
If you're not tampering, you're not doing your job. Every coach in Power 5 is doing it. I don't care what anybody says. I said maybe Dabo hasn't been doing it the last couple of years. Well, he started now because his program, he found out what happens if you don't do this.
Yeah. Is there rules against tampering? Technically?
Well, yeah, but how do you enforce it?
I mean, I doubt Drinkwitz is calling them up.
Right. Drinkwitz is not talking to Toriano Pride.
Yeah.
The Toriano Pride played high school football with Luther Burton. Is there a world in which a message could get from Toriano Pride to Eli Drinkwitz that it would sure be cool if he could play football at the University of Missouri?
I'm sure.
Armand Membo's already quote tweeted Cayden Green's hey, faucets.
People were forecasting Riley Leonard to Notre Dame when Riley Leonard wasn't in the portal. And guess what? He magically committed to Notre Dame today.
Yeah. I mean, right. You mentioned Toriano Pride going into the portal with a no contact tag too is kind of funny. Just like, yeah, I know where I'm going. Don't talk to me. Max Johnson immediately transferred from A&M and immediately committed to UNC. So it happens, right? I mean, as it happens. You just have to be a part of it. But Gabe, I thought you wrote a really good article of the Chamber on Friday that was very comprehensive of everything going on in terms of recruiting wise as we get really close to that National Signing Day on the 20th. Any more dominoes that are leading to fall? I don't want you necessarily give away your whole business plan, right? In terms of how you make money on your website, but anything. Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. Anything that have been updated to that, or any other dominoes that you're keeping your eye on?
Yeah, I mean they'll have multiple visitors this weekend, mostly transfers. And this is all stuff that I've posted. McKylan Pounders, an offensive tackle from Memphis, is going to be in town now. Where does he fall in the priority list after today's news? I'm not sure, but he's expected to be in town. Chris McClellan, a defensive tackle from Florida, he told me he's going to come to town Thursday night, stay till Saturday, then go out to Boulder. He is a Tulsa native who visited Missouri, actually Owasso, Oklahoma, but visited Missouri in high school. Missouri was in his top 3 with Florida and OU. OU is very much a factor here. One of these kids that when he went in the portal, everybody kind of thought this is done to Oklahoma, and very well may still end up being done to Oklahoma, but he's taken other visits and he's going to be in town. I would be willing to bet that if Missouri puts out a team that has Chris McClellan, Williams Winery, and Cayden Green on it the first game of next season, that Mizzou-Oklahoma rivalry about to get a whole lot more fun than it's been.
Yeah, that sounds fun to me.
Tasty. They're pretty tasty.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Maybe you can bring Daniel Parker back to play in the game.
Yeah. Are we ready to move on to basketball? Anything we missed on the football side of things? I think we did a pretty comprehensive sweep of what's going on the football front.
Yeah, I mean, Cotton Bowl is what are we, 16, 17 days away, right?
Yeah.
I got a note from a guy I know that covers Ohio State that said the indications actually are that most of their guys who are not in the portal are going to play that game, if not all. I asked specifically, does that include Marvin Harrison? And he thinks so. So might be more interesting than we have been assuming it's going to be.
Good. Glad for that. It'll be interesting to see the quarter. I think their quarterback player wears number 33, by the way, if that tells you anything about the quarterback that they're going to trot out there for this game. Take with that information what you will. But let's move on to basketball. Missouri does lose to Kansas in Allen Fieldhouse 73-64. They fall to 7-3 on the year. Gabe, before we started recording this podcast, I was talking about the column that you wrote immediately following after the game. I thought it echoed a lot of the feelings and thoughts that I had kind of felt as, going into that game. I didn't really think, I guess this makes me not a real fan. Arrest me, I guess. I didn't really think Mizzou was going to win that basketball game. And I never really thought it at any time. The 14-0 run at the end of the half there kind of doomed the Tigers from where it went, but it just was not something that was entirely too compelling to me.
It was a weird game. I mean, Missouri got up, 8 or 9 early, and had a couple chances to make it 10 or 12, right? And if you make it 12, if you make it 15, then it starts to get to the point where you go, oh, hang on, we got something here. But they never really pushed it beyond 8 or 9, and you kind of knew, okay. I mean, I even tweeted at the under 8 timeout, I said, I think Missouri was up 5 or 6. And I said, they've just got to avoid the crippling Allen Fieldhouse run, right? And then right at the under 4 timeout, Elmarco Jackson makes a 3. Anthony Robinson fouls him. 4-point play ties the game. Missouri got outscored 14-0 in the last 4:26. And I mean, that was it. For the rest of the game, Missouri actually outscored KU outside of that 4:26. But it was that one run where, I mean, 2 airball threes. And I thought Missouri deserves a lot of credit for their toughness and for their poise most of the day, but they lost it a little bit during that run. And that run was ultimately what beat them.
The problem I found with Mizzou, and it's happened over the past couple of years, is we have found a way in these big games, and it happened against Memphis whenever I was there a few weeks ago, in these big games, we find a way to go 4, 5, 6 minutes on these long scoring droughts. And in this game, we went 4 minutes and 20 seconds without scoring. And I can't figure out why we do it. It doesn't matter who the coach is, what players are on the team, but we do it in these massive games. And it drives me crazy because you can't go to Allen Fieldhouse and go 4 minutes and 20 seconds without scoring and win a game. Like, you absolutely cannot do it. And like you said, we outscored them the rest of the game, but going 4 minutes and 20 seconds without scoring, you're never going to win. You will never win.
I think that one happened because, like, even when Missouri had that 8-point lead, like, I kind of thought, this is really happening only because Sean East is throwing in everything from everywhere. Like, outside of him, they were doing nothing. Like, nobody was helping him, even when they got, like, he had 12 of their first 22 or something like that. So nobody else was doing much in that game at that point. I think Connor Vanover ended up making 4 shots. Nick Honor ended up making 5. All that came in the second half. Neither one of them did much of anything in the first half. I mean, I think Sean East was the only guy who made more than 2 shots in the first half. And so even though they were up, you just kind of thought, like, I remember Sean taking a couple shots where I go, oh, that's a terrible shot. Oh, well, it went in. Good for him. But I don't know how it went, but it did. Amazing shot. And this team they are short a couple of offensive weapons. I think they're not nearly as good offensively as they were last year. And if you watch that game, unfortunately, I got the basketball version of the All 22 film because of where the media sits in Allen Fieldhouse. Like, the ball movement, the movement on offense just isn't what it was last year. And I don't know if it's because they don't have as good of passers, but it's Nick Honor and Sean East dribbling for 20 seconds looking for something. And the other guys just aren't cutting and giving them the options that those guys had last year.
21 points for Sean East, 6 assists in that game. Mizzou's kind of been bit by the injury bug when it comes to early on this season. Right before the tip, Caleb Grill was announced that he was going to be out to 5-7 weeks following an injury that he sustained in the Wichita State game. That was a tough blow. Noah Carter left with about 8 minutes left in the game with cramps, didn't come back in. And obviously Caleb Brown is out for the season. But they're...
And John Tanja is just mystery man of the year. This is
we had to have one, right? You have to have one.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, because, like, we think he's hurt, but somebody asked Dennis before, like, last week, what's John Tanja's availability? And he said the same as it's always been. But we don't know what that is. Like, what does that mean? I don't know.
We'll never know.
I respect same as it's always been.
Yeah. I mean, I was joking with somebody after the game, because I asked about Noah because he'd never came back.
Right.
And Dennis said, he just got a cramp, routine cramp. I'm like, Well, I assume 90 minutes before tip-off, we're going to get, if the next game, we'll get a note that says Noah Carter's in the hospital. I mean, this is just the way it goes, man. You just got to kind of learn to live with it.
I guess it's a good thing they've been playing with a bunch of guys this year, because they've been needing to play with a bunch of guys when it comes down to it with all the injuries they've been having. That jumped out to me, just the Caleb Grill injury just before that. Really, the fact that they were kind of in that game. I don't know if you really want to take a moral victory if you feel like taking a 9-point win out of Allen Fieldhouse. It's a good showing. It's better than the last 2 years they've played against KU at home and then in Allen Fieldhouse. But I guess you can take that away from it. But I don't know. I just wasn't in the mood to take away a moral victory when that happened. I don't know. I'm not there yet on basketball. I'll be honest, guys.
I don't think I didn't get a sense of real anger from the fan base after this game. I think because when you go in with no expectation, then it's hard to end up disappointed. And I'm sure you guys are going to disagree with me on this, because I know you guys both have a different perspective than I do. And when I wrote it yesterday morning, pretty much everybody disagreed with me. I think the rivalry is different. I think it's faded a little bit. Not for the 2 hours during the game, you still want to beat them. You still don't like them. You still raise your kids that they can't breathe the air over there. I get it, but it seems different to me. Maybe that'll change if Missouri comes out and wins the game in this series. But I don't know. I don't think there's quite the vitriol and hatred that I think at least Maggie and I grew up being used to in this rivalry. And Tucker, maybe you did too, but you're like 14, so maybe not.
I think it would be a little bit different if, we played yearly and we played in both major sports, which, we'll see in a couple of years how that goes down, because it kind of stinks right now that we don't play them in football. So maybe we'll see how it goes. I know we've not always been like a major football rivalry, but those years when I was in college, because Kansas was a decent football school, they weren't, prior to me being in college, but so it'll be interesting to see if that does amp back up, especially if we can get them as a more permanent football rivalry, and if we pick up a bigger basketball contract, which, hopefully both schools want to do that. So I don't know.
I'll be interested to see. I mean, let's say this, for sake of argument, this little series ends 6-0 Kansas. I don't know if it comes back. Maybe it does, but I mean, I still like it better than whatever game would replace it on the schedule, right? It's more interesting to me than, for example, Seton Hall or Jackson State or, Eastern Illinois. I'd rather watch MUKU than those games, but I don't know. I'll be interested to see if you're going into the last year of this and Kansas has won 5 games by an average of 19 points. If that's something that that's why Missouri, Illinois football ended. Illinois couldn't win it. And they said, we can take our ball and go play the Big Ten West, guys.
Well, I think as Coach Gates starts, amping up recruiting as well, I think that's why a lot of fans weren't that upset, to be honest with you, because I know at least a lot of the Mizzou fans I was talking about, a lot of them were like, well, we know this is kind of a buffer year and we only lost by 9. So a lot of us are expecting bigger things out of a team next year. So if we can only lose by 9 this year and we're expecting good things out of the next year or, 2 years, we can take this 9-point loss. And I'm not saying, moral victory, because I don't like moral victories. But if we can, look to the future, then maybe it's not such a terrible thing. I don't know.
Yeah. They held Hunter Dickerson pretty quiet in that game. I guess you can take away from that.
The game plan was that's something I think Missouri fans should. The game plan was clearly good. Even Self said Dennis he made the game the way it needed to be for his team to have a chance to win. Yeah. And they clearly went into that and said Dickinson's not going to beat us, and it worked until AJ Adams figured out, hey, they're leaving this 12-footer wide open for me, and I can make it. And that was the difference between those two teams. You took away KU's top option, and they had a couple other guys. Missouri doesn't have, especially, I think Caleb Grill would have, but without him especially, that second and third offensive option just wasn't really there.
Yeah. They'll play Mizzou Arena next year, and then the next 2 years after that are at T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. So that'll be cool. The neutral site.
I'll be there on Sunday, by the way.
Yeah, that's the next game for the Missouri Tigers. They play Seton Hall at the T-Mobile Center, 4 p.m. I believe. Did they flex the Chiefs game into the noon slot, right?
They're noon. So, yeah, you can watch the Chiefs game and still get there. So, I think attendance will be, better than it would be if the Chiefs played at 3 o'clock.
I agree. Game also on ESPN.
Although, let's be honest, does anybody want to watch that play right now?
Hey, the Dolphins lost last night.
Yeah.
Made it a little better. Made it a little better for you.
Everybody in the NFL's back. That's the level.
It is in the AFC, I should say.
Yeah.
It's they're gonna win that game like 3-0 against the Patriots, against Bailey Zappi and the Patriots. Golly. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode. Any final thoughts before we get going?
I feel like we should talk about the point guard of the future momentarily or briefly.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah. Aaron Rowe, who I first heard his name as an 8th grader. Big deal in Columbia. There were Missouri fans that were wondering a game into, I think, his freshman year why Conzo Martin hadn't offered him. So that's how long Aaron's been a name on the scene in Columbia. Went to Link, came back, committed to Missouri this afternoon over K-State and Tennessee. Can't sign for a year, but generally when you commit this early, I know we just talked about Dylan Rathbone committing this early and moving to Georgia, and Aaron Rowe already lives in Columbia, so who knows, right? Maybe Matt Rule will sign Aaron Rowe in a year, but I think all very good things. I talked to him and he talked about what Gates has done with the program and bringing fans back to the arena and the chance to play at home and all that. So you stack that 2024 recruiting class he's got coming in with a top, honor voting is the highest ranked guy they've signed since Michael, and he's 21st. Right now we've got Aaron 25th. So, this is another kind of cornerstone kid, and I think it's a big deal to have it be a point guard because that's your leader on the floor. So now he's your leader on the recruiting trail for the next 12 months too.
Is he a high 4-star or is he
He's a 4-star right now. Obviously in that territory that could get bumped up to 5, and has a year and a half left in high school. He moved back from Springfield, or from Branson, I should say. So not eligible until second semester starts at Tolton, but
interesting.
I don't know exactly what game it is, but he told me his first game's going to be a home game, and he's looking forward to that. And I'm sure that a lot of local people will be excited to watch him play, knowing that he is going to play here for another 3 years at least. Well, 2 years at least. Who knows? 1 year at least. We don't know what college sports is anymore.
No, very exciting. Mizzou is killing it on both sports on the recruiting trail. I had a lot of people ask me just, about next year's class, because when you just go and hop into the your rivals' recruiting rankings and you see Mizzou at the top, you're like, wait a second, Mizzou basketball up at the top of this recruiting rankings? Like, yeah, Dennis Gates isn't messing around. Great to start that 2025 class off with a bang. A great prospect. Very excited to see what he can do in Columbia. Yeah, thanks for stopping me, Gabe. I appreciate it. I was so focused on the transfer portal and Cayden Green that I just totally forgot about the huge commitment.
Yeah, a lot of things going on.
A lot of things, indeed. Maggie, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I can't think of any other secret commitments. So
good. All right. I can't either, but I appreciate our folks at Home Field Apparel for suiting us out. Go check them out, homefieldapparel.com. We'll be back next week with another episode of Mizzou That Soup, because I'm sure 1,500 things will happen before then. So, Until then, that's Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. I'm Tucker Franklin. We'll talk to you guys next.